This is WCM's Park Update, a weekly show covering the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. During each episode, you'll hear from special guests and campground experts on topics that will help your park flourish. WCM's Park Update is a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine.
Hi, welcome to another episode of WCM's Park Update. I'm Ben Quiggle, your co-host, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine. And thanks to the sponsor of our show, Spot tonight, my co-host is Mike Gast, the president and founder of Emiola Group, which is a marketing consulting firm, I guess, Mike, is how you would describe it?
Yeah, the content, internet content, just about anything you want.
Yeah. And then our guest today is somebody who I've met at a number of different industry conferences, Krista Neundorfer, and she is the operator. Her and her husband, actually Jonathan, who's not here, they're both the operators of Aspen Grove RV Park, and they're also part equity co-owners. I guess you have some stake in the park as well. And I guess
Yes.
Can you just tell me where the park is located?
So we are in Tremonton, Utah. So we are 70 miles north of Salt Lake City. We're right at the junction of I-15 and I-84, that corridor right there. So northern Utah, we're right probably 20 minutes-ish from the Idaho border. So really far north in Utah.
And it's a newer park, correct? Like you guys helped kind of build the park, I believe?
So Jonathan and we actually oversaw the building from scratch. So when we got here, it was a dirt lot. We're celebrating our 5-year anniversary this year, May 18th, from our grand opening. So we had our grand opening May 18th of 2019 after we were here for a year overseeing the build of the park.
And you were recently named Ojai, which is, for viewers who don't know, that's the rebranding from it used to be the National Association of RV Parks and Campgrounds, and now it's called Ojai. But you were recently named the Ojai Small Park of the Year during their Words of Excellence ceremony at their conference last fall. So that's pretty exciting. Actually, that was in 2021.
Yes, 2021. 2021, we won Small Park of the Year, yes.
Yeah, and then in 2022, you were named Campground Partner of the Year. So that's pretty amazing. The years just all smashed together when you get as old.
I know.
So
you're not old.
they just all go together.
Last year we won the Planet Green Park Award.
Okay,
that's what I'm
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
so multi-award-winning park. It's amazing in the first 5 years to kind of get to that level. I mean, it just kind of shows what you guys have put into the park, I guess. So
I guess so.
So how many sites do you have, Krista?
So in our nightly weekly area, we have 54 sites, and then we are adjacent to a mobile home park that we have 41 long-term sites now at this point that are specifically for extended stay. So it's completely separate. So I think we're at 98 sites. 3 of those are for us and like work campers and stuff. So 97 rentable sites.
You're looking at the aerial shots of the campground. You pretty much have your nightlies fenced in, I guess is to say, and a little bit separated from the extended stays. Obviously, that was intentional. And
Yes.
do they share facilities a little bit, the amenities?
They do. So a lot of our long-term guests, really the only facilities that they use are the showers. But we do keep it all separate, mainly just so our long-term guests have more of a homey feel. But yes, everybody still has full access to our on-site bathroom, showers, laundry. And we have 2 facilities. So we have our clubhouse and our bathhouse that both offer bathroom, showers, laundry, and all of those amenities.
Yeah, and we have your park website pulled up here. I like this RV right here with like the blue glow here.
I know.
Isn't
that fancy?
Until you're camped beside them overnight, then you don't like it so much.
So
it's low ambient.
So you got a wonderful mountain view. I guess, is that the Rocky? I'm not very good with geography. Is that the Rocky in the background? Rockies in the background?
So the Utah's mountains are the Wasatch. It's the Wasatch
Okay.
Front, and it runs parallel with the Rocky Mountains. So Utah and Colorado are very, very similar when it comes to landscaping in those mountains that just run right down the middle of both of those states,
Yeah,
kind of
and
separating the two.
you got a beautiful park, it looks like.
Thank you.
It looks like you have like a dog park. What are some of the amenities that people get when they stay at this park, I guess?
So along with our facility, so in our clubhouse, we do have a full kitchen facility. We have an exercise area that we've actually added recently more to than what's in this picture here. And then we have on our grounds, I have a community garden that I do every year, which guests love it, especially if they're like, oh, I just need a little rosemary or sage, and they go over there and take what they need. And so that picture there, you can see at the bottom left of it looks naked. I should probably update that to a flourished garden photo, but our guests really enjoy the community garden. We have our Zen garden in the back of the park. That's just, it's got the big tree and a little sitting area. So it's just relaxing for guests to kind of enjoy some shade. We have a playground area for our kids. We do have our off-leash park, and it's about an 80 by 80 foot off-leash park for our fur guests that they can run around. That's where they are allowed off-leash. And we have our pergola area that we've extended outside of our clubhouse. So it's a completely covered pergola area with an outdoor barbecue and sitting area. With pickleball, cornhole, horseshoes, ladder ball, all those fun things. And then we have our EV stations. So we have 2 EV stations at actual sites for just preparing for the future whenever EVs have the ability to pull trailers for longer than 30 miles, and they can charge at the site so that they don't have to disconnect. And then we also do have 2 EV charging stations at parking, like overflow parking spaces as well. We have Wi-Fi, all those basic things. So,
boy, the overnight sites look huge. I mean, you've got obviously some real forethought put into the design of this. Can you walk us through the process a little bit in the timeline, and you know when the initial thoughts started and how long it took to get to this?
Yes. So the initial thought started with Carl, it's Carl, Lily, and Stolpe. It's the Lily and Stolpe. So they're the family that we work with, and they basically become our family. They're just amazing human beings. And so they've owned this property since they've owned the mobile home property. And this property at one point was a 55 and up community for mobile homes. And then the other side was for families. Well, some things happened. They changed their mind and decided that they wanted to dip their toes into the RV world. Well, they know nothing about the RV world. They're very aware and knowledgeable in mobile homes and that lifestyle and how to handle that, but nothing about RVs, which they are very different. And so the end of 2017 is when they began the process with the city, which the city of Tremont it's a very small city. Jonathan and I have watched this city grow like crazy in the 6 years that we've been here. So 7 years ago, it was even smaller. And so they began the process. And so when Carl reached out to us, we had an ad on Work Campers, and at the top of the ad, it said, please don't reach out to us unless you have an opportunity to build a park. Like that's the point that we're at this, at that time. And so Carl ended up reaching out to us. We interviewed with him for a couple of months, and probably from about January to March or so. And then after that is when they asked us to come out. So we ended up with our schedules and everything, ended up being able to come out in May. And so at May of 2018 is when we arrived here, and it was literally just piles of dirt. And so we looked at the plans, we were looking at the buildings, looking at the sites. And one thing, because Jonathan and I, we at this point, we've been full-time RVers for 11 years now. And so prior to being here, we were full-time RVers for almost 6 years. Well, 5 years, 6 years. Yeah. And we have stayed at some a lot of the campgrounds that we've stayed at were smaller. They're tight. Like, especially for older campgrounds, the RVs were different. The, like, just the dynamic of what people were buying for the time that that park was built or established is totally different than what it is today. And so we're also very big into the off-road world. And so we wanted to make sure that the sites would accommodate rigs of all size, because we've worked at parks where it's like, you can't put a rig here, you can't put a rig here. And like, then your whole team and everybody has to know where RVs can or can't go. And it can create a lot of chaos. And especially with us being more particularly for transient park, or for a transient park, we wanted it to just be easy. So we actually took out a couple of sites and then made sure the sites themselves, the pads, are 24-foot wide and the minimum length is 70 foot long. And then each site itself is 40 feet from pedestal to pedestal. And then we did take out one site so that we could put the dog park in and make it. And I told them, I said, I want this dog park as big as you can possibly make it, because we've been to parks where it's like a strip of fencing and your dogs can't run off leash, and they're just as important. We're big on the fur babies. So it took a while. Like, things kept getting pushed back, and we just watched dirt getting moved back and forth, and it seems like piles would just change all over the park and all over the places. So, but then we were able, once buildings and foundations started going in and picking out, you know, the wall color and countertops and things like that, like we selected the details of every aspect of the park. And so originally our goal was to open, well, originally it was like August of 2018, and that didn't happen. Then it got pushed back to November, and at that point only half the park was done with landscaping. So then it got pushed back to the next spring, and then that's when we were like, May 18th, that's going to be our grand opening day. And somehow it happened, and we made it work.
I think it's awesome, just how you guys got into the RV world too. Can you just talk a little bit about, because I know Ojai recently did a profile on you guys and the park, and it mentioned you guys were originally looking to like sail, and somehow you came across an RV, and you were like, let's not do the water thing. We'll just ride around on the ground, I guess. So
two totally different things. Yeah. So Jonathan and I, when we first met, like, we were very just wanderlust, and we were never really in one place for longer than a month or so, just bouncing all over. But we didn't have, it was like renting rooms, almost like couch surfing. And so when we really wanted a sailboat, that's the ultimate goal, is one day, if there's a YouTube channel called I'm gonna have a brain fart. It's the Delos, and it's a couple, and now they have a little baby, and she's probably 2 now, but they have traveled over, I want to say, 150,000 nautical miles on their boat, and I just find it fascinating. And we love the open water, so eventually that will be the goal still. But yeah, I don't know how we went, because we were like looking at taking sailing classes and learning all the ins and outs of sailing, so that way we weren't just, you know, throwing ourselves out there, then becoming a Netflix movie where the boat capsizes and then we are lost at sea because we didn't know what we were doing. But creating Netflix wasn't really a thing back then.
Does any of that translate to RVing? Like, do you use like the sailing flags when you RV or anything?
I mean, I think so. I mean, people have their flags, right? You're going in one direction, just wherever the RV takes you. Well, which is funny, because so when Jonathan ended up finding this 95 Tiffin Allegro, and I want to say the guy he had it listed for $5,000 on Craigslist. Like, it was a steal. Wow. And so Jonathan was like, let's try this. Like, it's our own little space. We could take it wherever. It makes sense. So we headed west, and we really didn't have an agenda or a location where we were like, that's where we want to go. We just headed west, and we were like, let's go to Colorado. Well, we ended up in Woodland Park on accident. We had no idea that Woodland Park was at the top of Pikes Peak. So we're climbing up 24 in this 95 tip and Allegro, and she made it up. But they're like, it was amazing. It was so cool. Like, you look at a map, you can't tell a road goes straight up a mountain when you're just like, oh, that's where I'm going to go. And that's where we ended up. And it was the craziest thing. So yeah, I guess it kind of has that same, like, you set a direction and then you just hope the pirates don't get you. So,
So when you're building a park from scratch, how do you make sure that you get the right amenities that people really want for that area?
That's a good question. I mean, really, research helps a lot, right? I mean, it's always different area, like you said, like location to location. But I think using our own experiences of what we've seen at parks before. Pickleball was like a new thing for me. I had never even heard of pickleball.
Oh, it's half my life now.
Yeah, but now I'm like all about pickleball, and it's fun, and the Canadians love pickleball. I'm so glad that we put a pickleball court in, but I think it's also, I mean, we have places where if at any point we ever wanted to add something, we could add something. So I think, again, that's just like that ever evolving where you are trying to, keep up with the Joneses and maintain things and just stay relevant and adding things that you can where you can so that your guests are happy.
I chuckled when I saw that you've got nearby horse boarding. So if you're traveling with your horse, you're within walking distance of the stalls.
Yes. Yep. We're right across the street from our fairgrounds. So, sorry.
So do you have a lot of horses then that come at the fairgrounds?
No, we don't. We've actually had a couple. It's not like a huge thing, but I mean, we have our county fairgrounds that are, I can see the bleachers from where we are.
Yeah.
So we get monster truck rallies and our county rodeo happens there. So they have a whole strip of stalls that are specifically for travelers. And so we just, it's an amenity basically, I mean, that we don't particularly offer, but our county, and it's right there for our guests. So if they were to ever need it, I think in the 6 years or 5 years that we've been open, I've probably had a handful of people that have used those stalls. So the fact that it is there, like, it's nice that it's still there for guests to be able to use.
So why no cabins or other accommodations?
Now, that's a question for Carl. He does not want to be in the hotel business. He wants to be in the RV park business. So we have tried. That is one thing that he is like, nope. And I'm like, why, Carl? Why? we have tried.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and then we will come back. We got to recognize our sponsor, Spot Tonight, and then we will be back with Krista.
Supercharge your campground bookings with Spot Tonight, the #1 commission-free OTA for RV parks and campgrounds. Through integrations with top property management systems, Spot Tonight displays real-time outdoor accommodation inventory with a marketplace where campers can search for and instantly book campsites. Best of all, it's 100% free for operators. Visit partners.spottonight.com to get listed and unlock access to over 60 million campers.
Hi, welcome back to WCM's Park Update, and we are talking with Krista Neundorfer, the operator of Aspen Grove RV Park. And the work you guys have done is just amazing. I think, what's even more amazing is how quickly you guys have kind of turned it into an award-winning park. I guess, and part of that is the way you deal, I would assume, with the customers. I mean, kind of, what's your process for, working with customers and how you manage campers, and are you pretty hands-on with everything?
We are hands-on. In the wintertime, we get away. That's our escape time because there's nothing happening in the middle of northern Utah when it's snowing, right? But in the summer, we're working 70, 80 hours a week just like anybody else. The phone never stops. That's one thing that I have learned, actually, is I took my work emails off my phone, so I have some kind of separation when I go home at the end of the day. But we do our rounds, and then Leia. We do. Sorry.
No, no, that's okay.
Um, we our guests experience is the most important thing to us, and again, it kind of falls back on the traveling that Jonathan and I did. We
Yeah.
have experienced parks that were absolutely incredible, and we've experienced parks where we're like, holy cow, even just the phone call, we're like, oh, okay, we don't want to stay here because we seem like we're more of an inconvenience than we are like as a guest to this park where we want to stay. And if you're spending money, obviously, like the dollar amount too, I don't feel like the dollar amount even matters of whether you're paying $20 or $120. It's the hospitality. It's bringing, like, this is our home. We built this place. We put every ounce of love and frustration and passion into building this park, and we live here too. So we take pride in the business that we are bringing to people, and so we instill that. We try to be as obviously anybody has their moments. You have your, like, the one thing that I don't deal well with is people that are rude to my team. Like, if you're not a nice person to my kids that work with us, like, that makes me upset because these kids are just doing what they were trained and you're taking it out on them. And so it's just still like bringing that customer experience, that customer service, and that just positivity, and trying to turn someone's negativity upside down just so you could be like, haha, like I did that, you know? And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just striving to be better and to do better and to just bring the best of ourselves to the park on a daily basis. And I mean, we're in the office every single day. We're answering phone calls, we're responding to emails, we're doing rounds, we're helping guests get to their sites, chaperones, things like that. So anything that we ask our team to do, we very much just as much do also. So
Now, it looks like you've got, at a time when a lot of campgrounds are getting very sophisticated with their rate structures, it looks like you've got a pretty simple one with your high season, low season rates on your overnights. Obviously, that's intentional. Any plans to change that? I mean, it's pretty clear cut. You know, do you feel like you're leaving money on the table when you don't get more sophisticated?
So we do. So we have our low season rates and we have our high season rates. Those are base rates. So we do offer. So we not offer. We implement dynamic pricing. So our rates increase once we hit 40% occupancy. Our rates increase by 2% within a structure that I've set up. So in the winter time, we're not busy enough to really ask what we ask for in the summertime. And our high season and our summertime, our rates will get up to $90, $100 after that base rate. We actually just increased our base rates for our high season. And so we've increased our rates every year, but we also are adding things every year as much as we can. This year, we're actually adding at least 4, possibly 5 premium sites where we're going to add a pergola over the picnic area, fence it in for dogs, and add a barbecue and outdoor seating, and create this kind of premium overnight site for guests that don't want to haul all their stuff out. And our minimum base rate for that we're planning on implementing is probably about $120, $130 a night plus dynamic pricing. So, and then our EV stations as well. The EV stations themselves are included in the rate, but at the point where EV vehicles are towing, then we plan on increasing those sites as well, because it's more of a convenience factor. So we have it all over our website that these are base rates, that these rates are subject to increase. When guests call and they ask about our rates, we let them know this is our base rate, but just so you know, if you don't book today, there is a high chance that rate will increase if you wait closer to the date. So we try to be as transparent as we possibly can, but still have dynamic pricing implemented.
Okay. Yeah. I guess, what's the feedback you get from, campers? I know when we talk dynamic feedback at conferences, people always get a little bit nervous about that. Do you get any feedback from people on how the prices change at the park?
Very rarely, honestly. I mean, especially when people get to our park and they're like, okay, they understand, but sometimes it can take like getting people to the park. But at the same time, I'm not going to turn someone away. So I'll tell them, I'll knock $5-10 off this. If my rate's at $95, I'm still making $85 off that site. The site's still more than what our base rate is. And so again, it kind of goes back to your customer service and how you handle things and that transparency and being very upfront with people. And then also always having some wiggle room and being flexible. I think that kind of can make or break it too, right? Is just like the flexibility and if somebody has never stayed at your park, whether they've stayed at your park or not, I guess you want them, if they haven't, you want them to come experience your park so they can see next time, like, yeah, that park is worth X amount of dollars. So I just think it kind of falls back on your customer service and the way that your guests are experiencing that and the way that you kind of portray it instead of just like, well, that's the price, too bad, take it or leave it. So
how long did it take Aspen Grove to really get some traction in those first few years?
2020. It took a year, but I think we got very lucky because of 2020. As awful as that sounds, people were so tired of being stuck at home, like everybody experienced. And we just so happened, we're, like I said, with us being at the junction of 15 and 84, we had people that were going to and from Yellowstone or the southern Utah states. And then a lot of Canadians. Well, actually, no, we didn't even have Canadians because they couldn't. But Seattle, Washington, things like that, people that were just trying to travel and get away from the bigger cities. I think that really gave us the upper hand when it came to building that traction in that year, just a year after our opening.
Okay. Yeah. What's, do you guys have room to expand down the road? Is that something you guys have thought about, I guess?
So we do. We own a front lot that we kind of use. We don't use it at all, but we own half of a front lot, and the other half is a food truck station that recently got built, which is great for our guests. They love that. And our long-term side, a lot of times, our long-term, when a mobile home gets pulled out, then we take over that mobile home site, and it turns into a long-term site. I mean, really owning the mobile home park, if anything ever happened, I mean, really we could, but the mobile home park is just an easy residual, so it's kind of it depends, I suppose. It really could be one way or the other.
Okay. All right. And you had mentioned earlier about the cabins. Is that something you keep pushing on, hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe?
We push it every time. One day I will get at least one cabin, or at least one rental. That is my motivation in life.
You got to put up a teepee or something. I don't know.
Successful.
Well, I've been through that argument before. It's always a case of owners realizing they're not in the RV business or the camping business, they're in the hospitality business.
Right.
And you really are keeping a large section that will probably never own an RV off your park.
How many staff members do you have at the park along with you two, I guess?
Well, in the high season, so we actually just basically hired everyone. We've got 2, 4. So total we'll have 6.
Okay. And I know you guys used to work camp to some degree, correct? Like go around and...
Yes, we did. That's how we started everything.
Yep. Yeah. I got a memory. So, so do you utilize work campers at your park, I guess?
We have, it's kind of, I think it hasn't really worked well for us. Really, like hiring local has been what has worked well for us. And so we really we hire like 15, 16-year-olds that are in high school that still have 2 years of high school left. And we're kind of like molding them into their future. And so that's really where we've seen like the most positivity out of retention instead of like constantly I can't tell you, like trying to train people in the reservation software every single year, or what, it's like, I don't want to do that. So it's just a little bit easier to just hire local for us.
Yeah. So is that easy then? Is it pretty easy to find people local to help you out at the park?
For the most part, I mean, we're like I said, it's a small city, but it is a growing city, and it's obviously like there's competition, but man, people, they, even for a smaller city, when they're still living at home, they're wanting a lot of money an hour. But even work campers at this point, like work campers, you're laughed at if you offer a free site plus $15 an hour. People think that that's a joke and they don't want to work at your park, which I'm like, I'm exhausting my funds at this point. So I think we have been very, very lucky, really. I mean, we have had some not so great, and we've had some incredible team members that have been with us for 2-3 years, and then they graduate high school and they move on and to the future of their life. And I think that's one thing that we've been really, really lucky with, having some incredible team members that have stayed with us for a couple of years, and then I have to find a replacement, and that's always the hardest part. So
So one question I always love to ask folks that start from scratch is, what did you screw up? What was the big mistake you made in the process?
I would probably say that I think the type of trees that we chose, like the trees that we chose were supposed to be fast growing trees. And I think that with us being in northern Utah and having the extreme winters that we have, there's no such thing as a fast growing tree, because they only have 3 or 4 months out of the year where they can try to establish themselves. And our poor trees, like, they're struggling. And that's what a lot of guests, I don't want to say complain, but that's their one like heartburn, is that we don't really have shade because our trees are such baby trees, which is why we are now wanting to put in these like covered patio area site specific so that they do have shade. So we're trying to kind of create a resolution to that problem. But yeah, I would say the type of tree, to like do more research, especially if you live in a cold climate, because spend the money and buy more mature established trees to plant instead of like tiny little baby trees, because they'll take a lifetime to grow.
Well, I mean, it definitely does depend on the tree. My wife and I want to start an orchard, so maybe you could start an orchard at the park.
I know that would be great. Peaches are a big thing in Utah, believe it or not.
I didn't know that.
Peach orchards, yeah, they're huge. Cherries, peaches, and raspberries are like.
Huh.
I would have never thought that they would survive, but apparently they do. So maybe I should have planted orchard trees.
So, well, I think we got to wrap up the show, but it's great talking with you, Krista. And are you guys planning on going to conferences this fall?
Well, we plan on going, and we'll have our little baby in tow. So I can't miss OHCE. This would be my 6th or 7th OHCEs. I can't miss it. I enjoy it, so we plan on being there definitely.
Okay, yeah. Well, it was great chatting with you. I hope you guys have a great summer at the park. And
thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for taking the time to come on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It was nice to meet you, Mike. I feel like I've met you before, but you look so familiar. But I don't know.
Well, if you're around long enough, you meet everybody and you forget everybody. So that's probably on me.
True. Well, thank you again. Thank you again for coming on, and thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you for listening to WCM's Park Update, a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine. Join us for a new show each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for daily news and updates, and subscribe to our news feed on our website at woodallscm.com.